Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the information of the body. What we're going to do here now is begin to go through the 12 remaining budget bills. We'll have 2 roll call votes on each bill, an adoption and then a final reading on it. So we'll start that process with House Bill 2002. I would remind you that House Bill 2001, the public debt bill, has already been approved by both the House and the Senate, and it's on its way to the governor. So with House Bill 2002, of course, this is the education, elementary and secondary education budget. Some of the new decision items. New decision means that we're funding them over and above what we funded in last fiscal year. There's a $278 million increase to the foundation formula. $114 million of that is GR. $163 million is in the surplus revenue. This will bring the foundation formula funding up to $3.353 billion, the highest amount, of course, it's been in the state's history. We had a $29 million GR increase for the First Steps program, a $10 million GR increase to the Foundation Transportation Program, $10.4 million increase to the High Need Fund, a $4 million GR increase for the Missouri Preschool Program, which will be targeted to unaccredited and provisionally accredited districts, a $3.5 million GR increase for reading instruction, targeted again to the unaccredited and provisionally accredited districts, a $1 million increase for Teach America, which works primarily in the inner city schools, $500 increase, $500,000 GR increase for the Mo Lead program, a $400,000 GR increase for the Math Science Tutoring program in the inner cities, a $455,000 GR increase for the Independent Living Centers, and a $150,000 GR increase for the Bright Futures program. Those are just some of the highlights. I'll be happy to take any questions. Other than that, I renew my motion.
Walk through this a little bit. The foundation formula, I know we did some cuts from the House version, and can you just walk us through the reasons for that and why we decided to
go with the Senate version?
Go with the Senate version on that.
The Senate had a different, what they considered a better number for lottery funding, so we reduced the GR by about $7 million, $7.5 million, and put that money into because lottery funding, gaming funds are not coming in nearly as well as projected. So they reduced the number. We went with it and put that $7.5 million in the surplus revenue fund.
Sure wish we could, and I guess that you agree, sure wish we could fund our education something different than just lottery and using the game of chance. And
well, it's it's been as you probably have heard this before, we've said it in education for many years, we fund it with all these sin taxes, and this is another one. Although,
kind of some irony there. But we did get some good things here. We got the Missouri Preschool Program, which was really important too. I mean, I think on both sides, but certainly we worked really hard on the House side to get some preschool dollars there, because we all agree that that really is the key, is those preschool dollars. We've got to get these kids to the same starting point.
Right. I think I agree with you, lady, especially in these districts that are struggling right now. And that's where it was targeted. Most of these districts already have a preschool program, but they can use additional dollars to expand it and to make it better. The Commissioner of Education told me a month or so ago that some of the programs being run by our public school districts are not that quality, very good quality. So,
no, gentlemen, I'm trying to be good today.
I know.
Don't take me down that road.
All right, I'm just telling you that it's not necessarily more money means a better program, but I do think by targeting this money toward these districts that are unaccredited and provisionally accredited, and they understand why it's coming and what it's for, that they're going to hopefully make some improvements. A lot of the districts don't necessarily need a preschool program run out of the schools because there are so many private programs. Like in Kirkwood, there are many, many private programs, and parents read to their kids at home. But a lot of these, in the unaccredited districts and provisionally accredited districts, we've discovered that a lot of the students are not coming to school in kindergarten ready to learn.
Well, particularly for districts like Normandy that are really struggling right now to keep their doors open. They've got some really exciting things going on in that district with their Reformation plan, and I don't know if you agree now, but I feel like they're really moving in the right direction. They've got some good plans in place so they can start moving forward and get better outcomes that we'd all like to see for them. So, and I want, getting off topic just a little bit, but I want to thank you and the members of this body that have supported Normandy so that we can get them in a place where they can keep their doors open. And then looking forward, Riverview Gardens and part of the, and I'm getting way off topic here, and I'm trying to be good this morning. It's been a long week. I'm tired. Let's talk a little bit about the performance-based assessment piece, because there's been a lot of, I don't know if disagreement's probably a little bit strong word, but there's been a little bit of confusion, and members have been on a little unsure where we're going with that. So let's talk a little bit about that piece and why we decided to go ahead and stick with the House
we had the higher
version.
number in there, and we went with the higher number over the Senate's position. It includes about $4 million so that every graduating senior takes the ACT exam, which is a good test that every student would take then who's graduating. We also had additional funding in there for more assessments as we begin to implement the Common Core. Again, this was a request of the department, and they feel very comfortable with this number.
Right, and I think I know my personal position was that we have to make sure that we're moving forward with the assessment, but I did share the concern that I think was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but was really, I think why the Senate changed from our position was they were kind of concerned that there had been a lack of communication from the department and, the contract. And I know I made a point in conference that in the future, and I think all of our hope would be that before, not just DESE, but any department, before they enter into contractual agreements, they have a better understanding, clear understanding of what their appropriations are going to be. And I know particularly with this department, it's been very difficult getting that information, what the contract was. And I know myself and the representative from the Bar District, I think the representative from South County, Allen District, and from the Flanagan District, I know we have worked very diligently trying to get that information, and it was difficult to get that. So that's yesterday. We need to be moving forward, and I hope they took us to heart when we said we need to be working more collaboratively in the future for the good of all our children.
I agree, lady.
Sheltered workshops, I know that's near and dear to both of our hearts,
right.
So I was really pleased with that.
Yeah, this is, as I may have mentioned on the floor before, the workshop folks came to me actually for the last couple of years, said they were dissatisfied with what they were getting from DESE on funding and other issues. And they requested that they be moved to DED. So I before I did that, though, I said, you go back to all your board members and double check that this is what you want to do, and lay out all the pros and cons for staying with DESE or going to DED. They came back that afternoon after a big board meeting they had, and they said the vote was 14-0 to move to DED. So that's why we moved them to DED.
Right.
And between our passing the bill out of the House to the Senate, they had a revelation that they wanted to go back to DESE. Right. So that's where they're going.
Well, and again, my understanding was, and I know serving on education appropriations, there has been difficulty during the years. They've been worried about their budget, and they felt that relationship could be stronger. So again, hopefully the department's listening, and they'll make sure that that's a really good working relationship, because I know from my special education background, I had a lot of students that went into these sheltered workshops. They do wonderful work, and they provide good training for our young people and allow them to go out in our communities and.
You're right, lady. My son worked in one for a little while. He said he needed to move to a more aggressive situation, more challenging.
And he's coming today, right?
He is coming today. He's
the
on
whole
the train.
Family and the grand.
As we speak, he's on the train.
All right, so we want to make sure that we're having good conversation to get till they can get here. The broadband, the MoreNet, we held our position. We switched it
over to House Bill 3. When I talked to the department again about this, they said that actually they go to MoreNet to ask MoreNet people where the districts are that need it the most.
Right.
So that's where it probably should be anyway.
Right. So, all in all, there's always has to be compromise, from the appropriation to full budget to the floor to Senate. But, all in all, I think we did a fairly good job in holding the House position. Would you agree? I
would agree, lady. I think we were helped at the last minute with some additional funding on the tobacco settlement thing. Otherwise, we would have had to be a little tighter on the budget. But that helped. That helped quite a bit. and we did hold the House position in most
yeah,
cases.
and I think there was good cooperation between the House and Senate, and a lot of that is due to your part. And I want to thank you, too, because I know you've worked very closely with our ranking member, the representative for South County Kirkton District, which she was able to come back and share that information with us. And I think the communication was good, which helps us to put a really good budget forward. And I want to thank you for that. So thank you,
welcome.
gentlemen.
You're welcome, lady.
Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
Oh, God, wonderful.
Seemed like a long time ago when we started this process in appropriations,
It certainly
doesn't it?
does.
And sometimes when it gets full circle, you have to go back and was that what we said
Yes,
to
I
full
know.
budget? But just wanted to touch base with you, and there were a few changes from what we sent over, and kind of wanted to get your input and where you were with the changes and where we ended up in the process. Because
I really think that most of the changes still reflect the priorities that we held within our committee.
I agree.
As far as the transfer of funds from one to another, that really wasn't within our prerogative.
Right.
As far as the broadband went, I wanted to make sure that was there.
Right.
I'm a little bit, I would rather have more in transportation. That was taken out, but
Yeah, that was a little concerning me, and I know that we have to have this, we have to compromise, and there's X amount of dollars, and
Right.
probably going to have even less X dollars to work with in the future, but I'm trying to be good today. But that was a little disappointing to me, because we've worked so hard to be able to get those transportation dollars in there, because I know particularly a lot of our rural districts, this poses a real challenge for them in their budgets with the rising fuel costs, et cetera, and I know they've come to us for many years now and hoping to see that increase. So maybe we can revisit it next year.
maybe so.
All right.
I really appreciate, I want to take this opportunity to say how much I appreciate your leadership of the minority members on that committee, because politics leaves itself at the door.
And it always has in our committee, and that's due to your leadership. So I appreciate it's been just a pleasure working with you. And from the day I walked into this building and went up and introduced myself to you, you've been a real mentor to me, and that's meant a lot to me. And I think we have a good trusting relationship where we can try to make decisions which are good for the children of the state. So thank you.
Thank you, lady.
But I do believe that we have a really good, we came up with some really good compromises. I think there's some room where we can revisit, as I just said, on the transportation issues and a couple other issues. But I think we have a good foundation here. I would have liked to have seen more money going into the foundation formula, but we have to deal with reality and where those lottery monies are. I would hope, though, that this body will be committed in the future to making funding that foundation formula a priority, but I would encourage the body to vote for this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
When you were making your remarks about House Bill 2002, I think you said something about Teach for America.
That's correct.
Okay, and is there funding in the budget for Teach for America? Is that what you were alluding to?
That's correct. There's $1 million increase this year. It brings it up to, I think, to $3 million.
And so it's been in the budget for a while?
Yes, it
and
has, lady.
It's an increase. Is it in the document that...
It wasn't a conference item, so it wasn't a difference between the House and the Senate. So it will not be in this document.
Okay.
But
So-
it's in the talking points, and it's actually in the bill itself.
Okay. And do you know how we actually assess those dollars, the effectiveness of that particular program?
Well, it's basically, they have their own assessments, but it's basically the school districts that hire these Teach for America graduates or teachers, I guess. They're the ones, like St. Louis Public School System. Normandy had about 12 that they had to lay off when they had to close an elementary school. So, and the superintendent there, Dr. McNichols, said that if he had been able to do it, instead of going last in, first out, he would have kept those 12. So it's an assessment by the school districts that actually determine how successful a program is.
I just know in the Kansas City Public Schools, we have used that program, but many of them do not stick around. They leave very quickly. But thank you for the inquiry, gentlemen.
You're welcome,
I appreciate it.
One is about the process and our budget chair and the appropriations staff. I have worked in appropriations and on the budget committee for 8 years. I've worked under different chairmen, and There's a lot of pull and a lot of stress in that position. I've never worked in a situation where our chairman understood the whole budget and was able to do what we did for education this year and supply the needs of the rest of the state. And I would like to commend the chairman for his ability to listen and put that all together, which is a handful, and for the staff that he had to do that. And to comment specifically on House Bill 2, I think probably the increase is more significant than most of the body knows. We not only are increasing out of general revenue $114 million, but opening the door for even more. And one of the reasons that is so significant, it is the biggest increase for the foundation formula in the history of this state, and it almost eliminates our hold harmless schools. There will need no longer to be proration between the different schools. We can move forward from this point, and if extra money comes in, it will totally eliminate all the hold harmless schools. So I think that's a very significant number. Not only did we not cut anything in education, but over $100 million for the formula, the biggest increase in history. And I'm going to be out of order here just a little bit, but I only want to get up once, and I'm going to move forward to House Bill 3, which our chairman hasn't talked about. But if you add higher education into this total education ball of wax, they also will get the biggest increase this year at one time in the history of the state, with the increase they get for the operating procedures, for the scholarship increases that we will include in House Bill 3, for the equity adjustment for community colleges. When you put all that together, we have gone way above what was expected, I think, this year for education funding. This body gets accused a lot of picking on education, of not fully funding the formula, and not doing the best we can. And I would like to point to these numbers and saying this is a very good effort, the best we could do, and probably the best increase that we've ever had in the history of this state. So I would like to commend those who cooperated with this, encourage all of you to go home and brag about how we have funded education, and once again commend our budget chairman and his staff for the tremendous work that they have done this year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In education, there's the foundation formula that gets a lot of talk and a lot of attention, but we also have categoricals, which are transportation and such. And I may have missed it, but I do know that we increased transportation even above what was requested. Is that correct?
Well, now, I think the governor requested the 15 million. We put in 25 in our budget. Went over to the Senate, they backed it down to 15, but it's an increase over last year.
All right. I just wanted to add any other categoricals that we increased on. I know the gentleman from Northwest Missouri, Thompson District, got up and explained a lot of things just now, but are there any other increases that we were able to put into the budget this year?
Well, as I mentioned before, the preschool funding was an increase, and that even though we've targeted it towards unaccredited and provisionally accredited district, it is available for all school districts in the state.
Throughout the state.
Right. It goes first, the $250,000 limit goes first to those struggling school districts, but then it's open to the rest of the school districts around the state, $250,000 a pop. And then if there's money left, and there has been the last 2 years, it goes back to the beginning of the line again, and districts can reapply for additional funding. So that's, I think, is a huge positive step for preschool funding and education in the state.
Well, I didn't serve on that committee, but I do want to say thank you to you and the entire committee for the commitment that you had made to education.
Thank you, gentlemen.
This year. Thank you.
The money that we've had to prop up some of the school districts with that because of the transfer, is that in this particular bill?
Are you talking about the transfer of funds from Normandy and Riverview Gardens to the surrounding schools?
Not their transfer, but keep the supplemental. Was that totally in the supplemental? Is there any funds in here at all to help?
No,
those
not
school
in this
districts?
budget. We put $2 million in the supplemental, which is fiscal year 14.
And if we don't get the bill that you're working on taken care of, we're going to have to put more money.
Well, that's correct,
next year.
gentlemen. Actually, if we do not pass a bill this year, the student transfer bill, even in some forms that are being proposed, the sending school districts, the struggling districts, Normandy first and then Riverview next year, will lapse because they'll run out of money. And then you're going to see a massive transfer of students to surrounding districts.
Well, what you're going to see is on the floor here, you're going to be seeing this argument that we have to give these people money or it's going to be catastrophic. It's going to be a domino effect. And I know that this isn't in the bill. I looked at it, but if you're budgeting your family's budget next year and you're overlooking the fact that you're not taking care of this problem, you're kidding yourself. We've got a budget for education that we're all going to have to come in here and spend more money if we don't get this bill on the transfer. And I happen to speak to your senator, very nice guy, one of my good friends, and he was telling me that the money really doesn't come from any place, like that. So it really doesn't. I had to tell him it comes from my checkbook. And because he caught himself after he said it really doesn't. It comes from the taxpayers of Missouri. So hopefully that we will act, and because our lack of action on this number will cost us in next year's supplemental. And I know I've never seen something where we schedule supplemental. We know we don't know, but you're going to be assured you're going to have to put money in that supplemental if you don't get that bill taken care of.
I agree.
And when it comes back here, and when it's over in the Senate, I want everybody to realize we're going to be spending money if we don't get this taken care of. Thank you.
Gentlemen, I do want to thank you for all your hard work on the budget and all the members of the budget chair, also our ranking member on the Democratic side, representative from the Kirkton district. She's done a phenomenal job. They're probably my background in education. There's no more important budget than this particular bill on education. Gentlemen, you have served on budget your entire 8 years in the legislature, so you've seen a lot of things happen over these last 8 years, correct?
That's correct, lady.
Right. And that's a lot of work that you put in on that, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'm going to get into, I have several questions, but I noticed in the printout that we do have additional funding provided for the Scholars and Fine Arts Academy. That was a Senate item, but
That's correct, lady.
I appreciate actually that. Being a former art teacher, I think we do too little for our gifted children, and the Fine Arts Academy as one way, and the Scholars Academy that we can engage these children that actually tend to drop out of school almost as much as children that are learning disabled because they aren't engaged enough. And I also am concerned about our lack of support for gifted education. Do you happen to remember off the top of your head how we're funding that?
Well, on the gifted programs, originally when I came up here in 2007, there were separate line items for gifted programs. You might have remembered the former Representative Sarah Lampe. She was heavily involved in that program when she was in education, and she was a strong supporter of that program up here on the floor. When the economy crashed in late 2008 for the 2009 budget, a lot of that funding, the categoricals that were referred to by the gentleman from Ripley, were cut. Some were eliminated. Some were combined in the foundation formula itself, and that was one of them. The funding
Right.
for gifted was included in the foundation.
Right. Our gifted program really dropped a lot, didn't it? So.
Yeah, we held the foundation formula flat for a couple of years while the rest of the budget was really going down.
Right.
But the categoricals did take a cut.
And the categoricals for those in this body and who are listening, that included school transportation. I think at one point we had cut transportation costs for schools by 70%, maybe more.
Lady, I'm not
remember?
sure. No, I don't think it was. We cut it 70%. It was never fully funded. It was funded around 60%. We actually reduced the funding so it was down below 50% of what the goal was for the state. It's kind of like,
Now, when you came in, it wasn't funded at a higher rate? I mean, because when I came in, I thought it was funded at a much higher level. And then about 4 years ago, we dropped it down during the crisis to about 25% of what it had been for school transportation.
no, it never went that low. I think when you came in, we were doing the fiscal year 9 budget, and this is before the crash, okay?
Right.
So we had,
well, we were getting the stabilization funds the year I came in '09. That's when I think we started to begin to receive some stabilization funds.
well, maybe so. I'm trying to remember because fiscal years cross over calendar years, but
Right.
when I came in, I know that we were funding transportation at a higher level percentage as well as dollar amount. Then we had to cut it in for about 4 or 5 years. I mean, we dropped down,
All
but
right,
we never dropped down to 25%.
Gentlemen,
though.
are we to the point? I mean, I applaud this additional money for school transportation, but have we gotten back to where we were several years ago?
Funding is of what we're supposed to be. Lady, I'm not sure what the percentage is now. I know that we got down to about 40 to 42% of where we wanted to be on it, but
Right,
we were
and-
never, when I was up here, we were never above 60%. So
And where are we now?
that's what I'm checking on right now, lady, to see. I think,
All right. Well, let's go on to another one. I noticed that in St. Louis Public, the transportation costs, we've done a special line item in past years, and it appears to me that the funding for the basic reason in St. Louis Public is children move all the time. We discussed this in Education Committee, and that's one of the big factors in holding them in student achievement is they move from school to school to school. And so this money was to allow children who move during the school year to continue on at the school that they first started in that fall. So it looks to me like the money has been eliminated for that.
no, lady, that $750,000 is still in the budget. That was a conferenceable item. We kept it in. That's for the intra-district transportation within
right.
St. Louis Public School System to address the transiency of students. This will allow all the students to stay in the same school that they started the school year in.
Right. So that money has not been cut at all.
That's correct. It has not.
All right, good. Thank you. I'm glad of that. Early childhood has been a kind of a very big issue for me personally, and I know that the governor recommended $20 million, and we went with $8 million, and then the Senate went with $3 million, and now we're back up to $4 million. Now, am I missing? Is that correct? And then there seems to be some other money for early childhood.
Well, this is an increase over last year's funding. The governor requested 20. We put in 8. The Senate dropped it to 3. We increased it to 4.5. I think. I'm not sure exactly what it is here.
So our increase in early childhood education money is $1 million, or how much?
No, it's 4.5. Is that what it is? 4.4. Okay. Over 4. It's a little over 4.
Little over 4 over last year's budget.
That's correct.
All right, and
Yeah, preschool.
then professional development, our regional professional development centers. It looks like the Senate held on their position, which was 0.
That's correct. Now I think they have $1 million already in that program. There's $1 million in there now. This was we had proposed $1 million increase on that one, but we went with the Senate position on that. So they still have $1 million for RPDCs.
Okay, so regional health, regional professional development They have $1 million, but they didn't get the additional $1 million that we were going to give them. They just gave them $1 million.
Right.
All right, now we have the surplus fund that you established, and my question to you is, on the surplus fund, when is it that school districts will know if, say we should get $200 million more dollars and it would go into the surplus fund, when will it be that school districts would be seeing that money or know they have that money?
Well, it's going to be toward the end of the fiscal year, obviously, because as I've explained before, this is a 2-year process, fiscal year 14 and fiscal year 15. We have to get to $16.7 billion, I think that's the number, over the 2 years before the surplus revenue fund kicks in. So it's going to be toward the end of fiscal year 15.
So, gentlemen, since school districts develop their budget Well, they're working on it right now, and it goes into effect. Fiscal year 15 goes into effect immediately in July, correct?
That's correct.
So really what we're saying is that the surplus funds will be of no use really this year in this 2015 budget.
It could be of use toward the end of the year. Now, sure, but school districts like businesses or any place else have to lay out a budget and plan for the revenues they expect to come in.
Right.
And if I were a school district, I would plan on the appropriated amount in general revenue and other funds that we have, not the surplus revenue, because that's the money that's, unless we have a severe downturn in the economy, and we're flat right now in our revenue increases over last year, but unless there's a serious downturn where the governor would have to withhold funding from education, then they can count on that money getting to them. The amount that we've actually put in general revenue and the other funding sources like lottery and gaming and things like that, federal funds. I would not, if I were a school district, not count on that money because, first of all, the governor will make the choice as to which fund he appropriates that surplus revenue out of. I mean, he will decide if he wants to put it into higher education or K-12 or some of the other projects that we put in there.
Right.
So it's up to the governor to decide where that money would go for. But it would be toward the end of the fiscal year, and you're right.
And so maybe next May, June? I mean, kids aren't in school in June.
Well, they can use it for next year then, the following year.
So that would, but, okay, and I don't know how budgets work as far as carrying over surplus that you have from one year to the next year. Some budgets don't allow it to be carry over, but that I think is gives false hope of sort. So, gentlemen, I thank you for your inquiry and for your work on this. Mr. Speaker, I would like to speak on the bill, please.
Proceed, lady.
Thank you. There has been a lot of work that's gone into the budget and a lot of effort on everyone's part. We have a budget that I think is unnecessarily limiting in that the governor had recommended one amount. This body chose to go with a much lower amount. There was no consensus developed between the budget, the House and the governor's office and the Senate. That is pretty historic. Normally there's a consensus number that is developed and we work from that. We have seen, in my 6 years in this legislative body, I have seen many cuts to education. Now, the foundation formula, the governor has tried his best, and this body has tried to not reduce the foundation formula any more than possible. But we did not do what was statutorily required of us in increasing the foundation formula as we were to do. We failed in that, and that is why we have our $600 million underfunding the foundation formula. This is money that could have really made an important difference to the children of the state. We did increase early childhood education by $4 million, and that is great, but we have a crisis on our hands, and that crisis deals with provisional and unaccredited schools, basically children who live in poverty. And over the last 5 years, the number of Missourians living in poverty have increased dramatically. We need to be getting early childhood education really to everyone who wants it in the state of Missouri. Every district should be making available to the youngest children early childhood education. But at the minimum, we should be getting early childhood education to our provisional and unaccredited districts so that they have a chance to get back on track. That's the best bang for our buck, is early childhood education. We have extended learning time. I've talked before about the way that works, helping by giving kids in challenging districts more time to learn, extending the school year, having Saturday schools, that works. That closes that achievement gap. We should be doing that. We don't have the money in the budget to do it. Transportation. If you can't get kids to school, you can't teach them. So school districts all over the state, particularly in rural area, have diverted money from classroom instruction to transportation so they can get the kids to school. And it makes a difference. We are not back to where we were when I first came into this body. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot, we are doing the best we can with what we have decided is what we should spend on education. We are doing the best we can, but the fundamental thing is we should have decided for a higher number. We should have prioritized education more, and this is the reason I'm going to be voting against this budget, because basically we are not putting our priorities where we should be, and the vote we took recently is going to keep Missouri at a very and make it extremely difficult for schools to do what they need to compete with other states around us and globally, because we will not be able to fully fund the foundation formula. We will not be able to provide early childhood as we should be providing it, and to give our poor performing provisional and unaccredited districts the resources they need to improve. And let me be clear, every unaccredited provisional district is capable of...
I'm sorry, lady, your time has expired. Further discussion. All those in favor will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. Mr. Clerk, please ring the bell and open the board. Mr. Clerk, please close the board and tally the vote. By your vote of 129 yes and 23 no, you have third read and passed Conference Committee Substitute for Senate Committee Substitute for House Committee Substitute for House Bill 2002.